Hello, everybody. It is great to be here one more time today. And my name is Gary Fowler, and I'm the CEO, president, and founder of GSD Get You Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a seven-time serial entrepreneur and involved in several unicorns. I was on the original management team of ClickSoftware, which was sold to SalesForce for $1.35 billion, and also Yva.ai. We believe that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities are not. So today I have an incredible guest. I'd like to introduce Andrew Yates. Andrew is the CEO and founder of Promoted.ai, a Y Combinator startup company. Formerly, Andrew led ads ranking, auction, and marketplace engineering and research team at Facebook and Pinterest. He specializes in designing billion-dollar, now imagine everybody, billion-dollar content marketplaces that maximize long-term revenue while protecting both seller and user experience, and has published over a dozen patents on commercial media optimization. With that, I'd like to bring Andrew on board. Hi, Andrew.
Hey, Gary. Good to meet you.
Nice to see you. So tell me, where are you from originally?
Me originally? Ohio.
Yeah? And where did you grow up in Ohio?
Northwest Ohio, around the Toledo area.
Now, how was that?
It's flat.
Real
Easy
flat.
to drive. Everything is measured in how long it takes to drive to someplace.
Yeah, you know something? I lived in Wichita, Kansas, and I'll never forget. I met this girl, and I said, "Well, how, do you want to meet?" She said, "Sure." It's a 5-hour drive, and I said, "You're going to drive 5 hours to me?" Like, I said, "Like, how many miles?" And she said, "I don't know. We don't count in miles. We count in hours." So, okay, whatever. So was that part of Ohio? Was it more like the Midwest, or was it more like the East Coast?
Midwest.
Yeah. That's good. So it must have been interesting. Did you grow up on a farm, or was it a rural community?
Nah, the suburb.
Suburb, yeah. Interesting. And so what's your journey like? How did you come out to, so here we are in San Francisco. What was the journey like to get out here?
Oh, I met my now wife in graduate school. She won a hackathon, won a job at Pinterest, moved out to San Francisco. And that was way better than being a PhD student. And so I joined her out in Silicon Valley and moved to San Francisco. Had a short stint at a startup doing ad tech on helping you optimize Facebook ads, and very quickly learned that no, you cannot out optimize Facebook. That's not a sustainable business. Great team, but if you were serious about learning commercial media and how it works and how to make it better, go work at Facebook. So I did, and I worked in the ads ranking backend, machine learning model training, deployment. Then worked on research team for conversion optimization. Then joined Pinterest, led the marketplace engineering team, and then started Promoted.
Well, that's interesting. So how was it working at Facebook? What was it like?
Oh, well, it was a lot of work. This was 10 years ago. It was a different culture. At the time I joined, it was transitioning from, in my opinion, pirate hacker culture to more of a corporate scaled culture. So they were in the midst of scaling, I think would be their business, their ads business. And when I joined, it was I called it the ad score mines. It was, hey, we have this objective of total, it's called realized utility. It's called ad score at Facebook. And the idea of it was make that number go up. That was your job. So whatever that was,
matter. Get the number up. Interesting. How was it? Did you deal with Mark Zuckerberg much? Did you have to?
Never.
Never.
Nah. It was a huge company 10 years ago, even, and just for my personality, I never really felt like it was worthwhile to pretend that I had some sort of direct relationship with the CEO. So I never imagined such a thing.
Interesting. No, that's interesting. Well, it's always good. I've been in Silicon Valley for almost 40 years. So you can imagine who I know. I've been around the block a few times. It's interesting to see people that you met, and then all of a sudden they're running billion-dollar companies. You know what I mean? They go from a little startup to a billion-dollar company. And and even with ClickSoftware, the company that I was on the original team of, I mean, from nothing to $1.35 billion exit. So you see, and it's like the magic and miracle of Silicon Valley. It's just there's some kind of a special dust out here that, you get the network, you get the contacts, you get the educational system, and you get the people wanting to take risk. It's just incredible. So you came out here, and were you studying for your PhD?
Oh, well, I studied computer science. I wanted to do something with I I had this idea that the human cell would be the next engineering platform. Well, I was probably several decades too early for that. So there wasn't really a whole lot to be done in my opinion in bioinformatics that would be changing anything, maybe just measuring things, which wasn't as exciting. So I was doing my PhD in biomedicine with a dual degree in computer science.
Interesting. And where did you go to school?
Ohio State.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, no, I lived in State College for a while, so I built some houses up there at Penn State. So, or they've got some rivals. Oh, amazing! So you came out here, and if you look at Andrews, what's the dream of coming to Silicon Valley? Because a lot of the listeners we have are from all over the world. What's the dream?
The dream
Yeah.
is you start a successful company and it's you become very wealthy and you have a huge impact on the world through the fantastic product you've brought to everybody else.
So, what do you think's the most important? Is it the wealth? Is it making an impact in the world? Is it personal happiness? What's the most important thing?
No, I don't think it's any of those things. I think it's a mandate to do it. And I can it's more it's easier to describe as contrast to, for example, Ohio or Ohio State. There's no mandate. People don't go to Ohio to change the world. There are a lot of fantastic things, and why Ohio? There's so many other places in the world that are fantastic places. They're excellent places. They're comfortable. They're affordable. They may be beautiful. Um, Maybe your family lives there. Variety of different reasons. Most places are not destinations that people strive to be at and sacrifice to be at to do something great. And and you can feel it too if you say, oh, I go to Ohio State to be the greatest in the world. It feels wrong and people don't really believe it. You may believe you can go to Ohio State to get a fantastic education, or Ohio you can get a fantastic education, you can build a successful business, you can live a happy successful life, be very wealthy, have a great family, have lots of friends, meet great people. But it's not the place that most people commonly believe that you would go to do great things with other great people, to change.
Unless you're in football, Andrew, right?
Unless you're in football. That's true. That's a good point.
Right.
Different fields have different concepts of where are the best places to go. So if you are a college football professional and that's your life, then yes. If you're not, then watching the games has nothing to do with people being excellent at football. So I think that's the other aspect is for this domain, if you are in technology, if you want to do something around building wealth around technology, you come to San Francisco and it's a marker to other people and to yourself that this is your commitment to do something great. If you don't do that, then it's not that it's impossible. It's just not a legible commitment that other people can understand. And to be entirely candid, for someone like me who did come from Ohio State and from Ohio, and uh, I needed it because otherwise there's absolutely nothing identifying why the things that we're building and we're passionate about have any reason to be successful over others. Whereas I suppose if you already had something on your background, like this is why you would go to, for example, Stanford University or Harvard University, it's stamped onto you that, okay, you are on some kind of track, you are in some kind of space worth some sort of attention or some sort of minimum amount of good faith trust. If you can come to San Francisco and build a career here, that can be you. If especially if you haven't necessarily checked every box along through growing up when you were 12 and then 15 and then 18 and then university, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a way for people, let's say in their 20s, to make something of themselves and make their own track so that they want to be great, and it accumulates other people in that way too as well. It's the same signal to everybody else.
So it's credibility, right? You get the credibility by coming out. So if you get a Stanford or Harvard MBA, that gives you a stamp of credibility. But then again, if you drop out of university and you end up, starting a company like Facebook, and you get billions of dollars from people like Yuri Milner, right? Everything changes because all of a sudden you become that person. It's interesting. It's
Absolutely do not drop out. I think that these sort of mythologies are absurd and ridiculous. First of all, Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of Harvard. He was already admitted into Harvard. A big theme of it is, if you already have the sufficient social capital and trajectory to accomplish whatever thing that you already have momentum on, then maybe you can leave school because you haven't really sacrificed anything. In general, what people hear is, oh, somehow it's a marker of future success to leave university, and it's really not. I would say it's a success despite leaving university. It doesn't help you, but it may not be for certain people. It may not be additionally useful, especially if they have other things happening that, like, for example, Facebook already had some success, and it was like, well, if you're confident that you don't need to graduate and then apply for a job and get an ordinary
yeah, that's
track,
it.
then sure. And if that's abundantly obvious to you,
Mhm.
then make that decision for you. But in general, I think people see these sorts of mythologies about, oh, such and such was a dropout from, they're a college dropout. I think people see that and they try to change they try to make themselves successful by emulating some of these surface level behaviors without thinking more carefully about, for example, the Social Network movie. I it had a lot of flaws, but one thing I'm shocked that people continue to forget was how explicitly elitist it was. It was Harvard. It was Mark Zuckerberg's original motivation was he was at the most elite institution, but he felt slighted because he wasn't part of the sub most elite groups in the most elite institution, and therefore he behaved poorly, and that sort of rage and anger was channeled into creating this Facebook and created his own ecosystem. And then
Mhm.
they went to not all people and democratized anything. It was, what if you could capture all of the implicit social connections and all of these elite institutions and somehow monetize it through technology? And for people to sort of forget this sort of very deep ingrained classism and social institutions and say, well, I can copy the surface level of it. Anyone can drop out of school. I think that's short-sighted and destructive.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because you look at the backstory, people like Bill Gates, right? His father was a very successful attorney, K&L Gates, and he dropped out of Harvard, but they had the backing. You look at the backstory; they didn't come from low social classes. I mean, came from top social classes coming in. It's just interesting, but you're right about it. Education is important, especially if you get into a opportunity and then find out it doesn't work and you want to go for another job. It surely does help, right? It helps to have that degree from Harvard, have the degree from anywhere. So
I
let's talk a little bit about, I want to talk about what Promoted.ai. Tell me about, how you came up with the idea, where you are today, and, it would be interesting for my audience.
Yeah. Well, when it was clear I wasn't going to be working on curing cancer or using the human cell as the next engineering platform of some sense,
Mhm.
then pick an industry that's the biggest industry, which is online advertising, and become successful in it. Build a company in it that works. And that's online advertising. And as I mentioned, when I first started my career, I joined a startup in ad tech. And my observation was that it's easy to get started, but very difficult to be successful, especially with top industry players there like Facebook and Google and now Amazon and Microsoft, et cetera, et cetera. These are not easy competitors in any sense. And so I wanted to get industry experience from the deepest levels of this is how things actually work, and then later start a startup once I'd already acquired that deep level of industry experience. Versus at the time, let's say 10 years ago, it was a stereotypical startup idea of we'll just do something in ad tech. We'll help people create ads, which didn't work out very well. It was easy to get started, but very challenging to be successful. And so I did that in my career and did get that industry experience. And eventually I had to actually go do it. It's a very comfortable life to work in big tech as engineering manager, and it's good pay. They're great companies. Eventually, you have to actually go take the leap and start the company, and I did.
That's interesting. And, it's amazing when you get into those companies with the stock options, almost becomes addicting, doesn't it? With the stock, and you see the stock going through the roof and, putting a lot of money in the pocket. I mean, how much of going into a company like that do you think, especially 10 years ago, Facebook, the people think about the options and those kind of things? Is it the most important thing, or is it the fulfillment of the job? What is the most important thing when you come into a company like a Facebook at that time?
When you're doing big tech as a career, is your question?
Yeah.
Like, what are people thinking?
Yeah. What's the motivation to come in? Is it because they're interested in the technology? They're interested in the options. They're looking as a basically a step to the next opportunity for themselves in terms of creating a company. What's the motivation?
I think it's similar to every other professional career. Even 10 years ago, Facebook had a prestige brand, and as an engineer, I think thinking of it differently from law or medicine, or investment banking, every professional career has careerists. And if you want to be successful in that career, you are very well aware of what different companies mean in your own perception. And people have differing perceptions, but there's some convergence about here's what it looks like to be successful in this specific career. And so for engineers, I think one thing that's happened over the last 10, 20 years is it went from a disreputable sort of IT guy thing that you'd be upset if your children wanted to do if you were an ambitious parent with the sort of striver mentality, to the thing that your career that you want, even if you're not really passionate about technology or have any special skills in it. I suppose you could go be a product manager or something like this. It became a career profession track for ambitious professionals who maybe didn't have a particularly strong passion for the work that they're doing itself, although they may be quite excellent. And I think you could say the same for investment banking for sure, but more like the law. Hey, law is complicated. There's a lot of stuff. I'm sure there are many people who are very passionate about law, different areas of the law, but it probably doesn't overwhelm their sense of, hey, I want to be successful in this law career. And so for engineering, I think that's how many people are perceiving it and managing their careers. And you can see that kind of behavior openly displayed on forums like Team Blind, where people are talking about what companies were you at, what's your total annual compensation, what's your level, and just almost like you have to disclose. I think it's a meme, actually. You have to put in your total annual compensation before you can even answer questions about career advice in Silicon Valley. I think it's becoming a bubble. I think that this is starting to create some distortions in the overall technology market. But nevertheless, over the last 10 years, people going to Facebook in general, or Google in general, or like these top tech companies, and then like different tiers along, yes, it's about compensation. Yes, it's about working with great technologies, working with great peers. But I think more so, it's the traditional sort of careerist progression that every other professional track has and created over the last 20 years or so. It certainly was my mentality for me. And by the way, it's extremely powerful. Saying that these things don't exist or they don't matter. Be on one side of it and be on the other side and do a contrast. Perhaps if you've been on that track and never been on, and but never been off, and can compare and contrast, you maybe don't have an appreciation. I wouldn't underestimate how powerful these tracking ideas are if you're thinking about, hey, what do I want to do with my life, and you're in school.
No, I got it. So tell us a little bit about Promoted.ai and what kind of, where are you going to go with this? What's the vision over the next 5 years? And And we have people who could be potential partners. We're all over the world today. We're in 52 countries. So tell us a little bit about it. I mean, where are you today? What do you want to do? And what kind of partnerships or what kind of customers you're looking at?
Yeah. We optimize marketplaces. We sort search, promote the best listings at the top to increase revenue. If you've ever used Airbnb, what you see on Airbnb, we power that. Now, Airbnb is not one of our customers today. That's more of an example that most people know about working on it. HipCamp is one of our customers. So they're similar to Airbnb, but for camping. Fantastic app, by the way. I highly recommend it. And the way we're doing it is we're using self-service performance ad tech like you would see on Facebook newsfeed or Pinterest or Google AdWords. And we use that to power everything in marketplaces and e-commerce. This is getting a little bit complicated. There's like some pieces here, like this is hard for people to think about that, hey, everything is really an ad. Like everything that you see on a commercial app or social media has some quantitative objective. Like there's some dollar sign of value to doing this at all. And you can use ideas from ad technology to optimize all of it and ultimately build an ad network. Nevertheless, that's what we do. And that's why we can optimize the top marketplaces we work with. We have amazing engineering teams. They have the pick of vendors. They have millions of dollars to spend on whatever they want to build, make buyers and sellers find each other better. And we can improve their business by 10% or more.
Oh, that's fantastic. And what stage of the company are you in now? Do you have revenue?
Stage. We raised from Y Combinator Continuity back in February, and we are continuing to keep the company small. We are, think of it from a strategic standpoint. If we simply followed the traditional big tech path of hire a whole bunch of people and hire a bunch of people from pretty good companies and try to make a really easy self-service, easy to integrate kind of product, why would we be more successful than the zillions of other competitors that all have exactly the same strategy? Like this idea of build the crappiest MVP that can get you over the line, spread it everywhere, and then later you're going to go hire the good team to make it scale once you've shown some product market fit. Two big problems with this. Well, three. One is it's been, I keep emphasizing like time. I think people kind of, at least in their 30s or so, like it's been a while. Big tech is not new. It's been around. Everyone knows this plan. Everyone knows your product sucks because everyone's product sucks. And there's a lot of other competitors doing the same thing. If you copy them, you're going to be no different. Your product will also suck. The other is the idea of, I'm just take a bunch of venture capital and hire a bunch of people to go fix all of my problems later once I'm big. Oops. No, actually, it's not so easy as making an asset on a spreadsheet. It kind of reminds me of the mortgage crisis in the sense of like when you're so divorced from real people doing real work, accomplishing engineering tasks to build great software, and it becomes more of just a mathematical formula of I need to hire this number of engineers and pay them this amount of money, going like reverse engineering the blind conversation. I need this level of total annual compensation engineers. And if I do that, then in 2 years, they'll build like this level of No, that's not what happens. You end up with like a lot of really highly paid engineers kind of lost and not really building it, but you have to pay them. So if we follow that strategy, that's not going to work. And three, or we won't be any more successful on average than other people following that strategy. And three is, it turns out really hard to build search and discovery, competitive monetized mode. It's like you have to solve search, but you also have to solve the dollar sign of it. Like it's not just what you show, it's you have to show everyone, you have to try, and you have to solve a price for it. In terms of like commercial media network, this is really hard. It's a lot of data. It's a lot of, it's adversarial. And it's like, you're not just maximizing something anymore. It's a competition and you have to balance this network. It's a different solving search and discovery, like personalized recommendations. That's like a subset of solving like the ads system. And when people say ads, immediately they think, oh, banner ad. Like, I just choose something at the top and I charge some amount of money. And I hate ads also. I don't want to think about it. It is deceptively very, very difficult, not only to build, but also to manage, because it's not so easy to say, oh, just maximize this metric. It's like you have a lot of trade-offs and someone's going to be unhappy. By the nature of the thing, only one person can be first. And then like, how much do you charge? Like, do you sacrifice that to let someone else be first, but how much do you bill them? And then the other person is going to be angry. It's challenging to manage. So overall, from our perspective, we're deliberately keeping the company very small and focusing on delivering an amazing product experience for top companies that people respect. So for example, OutSchool, HipCamp, Teachers Pay Teachers, these are amazing companies that have great in-house teams. They can build anything, and they work with us because we make them better and we make their product better. And then we're able to do that because we strip out everything that's not building an amazing product and great engineering for our customers. So no company building, no hiring, no recruiting, no marketing, no advertising, minimal sales. Take a team of experts who have built this for their whole career and have worked together to build these kind of things before. Get them together and just focus on doing that piece and do it for as long as possible, and far longer than you would be able to do at a bigger company, when as soon as it sort of works, management gets impatient. They're like, oh, gotta scale it, gotta add in all of these features. And you get like an okay system, but it's never great. To get to great, you need to keep in that smaller lean mode of just experts and iterating on customers that have enough scale and complexity where they can benefit from an amazing product as opposed to a merely mediocre one. And so therefore, we've deliberately kept in a seed stage for as long as possible, as long as we can.
No, that's great. So we're coming to the top of the show. So closing thoughts, and how do people get a hold of you?
Oh, you can email me at Andrew@Promoted.ai.
Okay, so everybody out there, Andrew at Promoted.ai. It's an incredible company. I mean, he's got a wide background, deep background, and as we say, we get stuff done. So sounds great. It sounds like you're moving in the right direction. Any closing thoughts, Andrew?
If you're in school, probably finish your degree and get a job at big tech. Like 80% of the time, that is the right advice. Do that. Like 20% of the time, if you know that you're the exception, you don't need to listen to this advice, and you wouldn't take advice from me. But for most people out there, just finish your degree. If you want to go to do something else, you can go get a graduate degree or master's or something like that. But don't drop out of school and start a startup.
There you go. So don't drop out of school and start a startup. Thanks, Andrew. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. And thanks to my entire audience for joining one more time. GSD Presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. And I'm your host, Gary Fowler. Stay tuned for another exciting edition coming this Thursday. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Andrew.